An England shirt is just a shirt, but once someone puts it on, it transforms them for the rest of their life. It's such a key morale booster to say, I've represented my country. And the amount of students that have gone on now, we have patrons within England universities. So Tyra Dengby, representing England unis, playing at Surrey Scorchers. Tamsin Greenway, she came through a student at Bath to represent English universities, went on to represent England and is now the head coach at Scottish Thistles. So we've been able to have some patronage to support the programme and grow it. So from my experience, I just saw an opportunity there that at the time, and still is the case now, British universities and college sport, who oversee all student sport, there isn't a current requirement for them, or they don't dedicate resource or funding to support nations. So Welsh student sport deliver their own. Scottish student sport is structured slightly differently, as is Northern Ireland.
Welcome to another episode of the Drive Phase podcast from Coordinate Sports. This is your show about sports founders, leaders and experts and the stories behind their business journeys. Just finished a great conversation with Barry Squires, who's joined us on the show today. He is the head of sport at the University of Brighton and also the chair of the English University Sport. Amongst other things, we talked about Barry's journey, his career in football, coaching over in the US for almost 15 summers and kind of what he learned over there, what he brought back to the UK and how he's kind of implemented it into what he does now in the higher education sector. And we also talked about his plans and the committee's plans for resurrecting the home games between the university's elite competition. So yeah, great conversation. Really enjoyed chatting with him. Took me back a little bit to my university days and reminiscing about books, etc. But yeah, if you're in sport, elite sports, sports development, anything to do with those kind of elite sport pathways, great listen. Barry's really super knowledgeable about all those pathways and kind of the benefits and kind of the synergies that the home games will bring, as well as how it links into the wider national governing body frameworks and platforms. So yeah, enjoy the show. Okay, I'm delighted to welcome Barry Squires to the show today. He is the head of sport at the University of Brighton and also the chair of England University Sport. They're currently representing over 117 student sport member institutions. So great to have you on the show today, Barry.
Thank you, James. Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Yeah, unfortunately we're all kind of stuck inside, missing the weather. I know we were talking about summer and the weather in the UK and all of the things that brings to sport. I think most of our listeners will know about the universities, will know about books, etc. But it'd be great to kind of dive into all that later on. But firstly, if we can get to know you a little bit better, we always kind of touch on sport and what impact that made on all of our guests as they were growing up. So do you have any kind of insight, or how would you describe sport in your childhood?
Yeah, I think in a very simplistic way, sport made me really. It was ingrained into me since the younger years of my parents, being the continuous taxi driver, 7 days a week, representing, I think I represented county sport in 4 different disciplines: football, tennis, athletics and cricket. But it was very much the basis of me, I guess, developing my personal skills, having those transferable skills, which then took into education, schooling, friendship groups, and that's how I think I became the person who I found myself then going through school and university and into a career.
I know you said you obviously everyone can relate with the parents being taxi drivers, even that, like if you've got kids now or remembering your parents doing that. Was it something that they, was it a sporty family, or was it something that they just encouraged because obviously you like to do it?
Yeah, I think my father was very much into sport, played football semi-professionally, and it was, I guess, one of those things where he was from the police force, so it was very much around trying to keep me off the streets, causing trouble, and sport was that outlet and that opportunity for me. I guess it was my safe place. I felt confident within sport, having that relationship with a coach, with a club, with others around to sort of build my skills and confidence as a person, because I probably lacked a little bit of confidence when I was younger, but actually sport gave me that confidence to feel more positive about myself and with, networking and other friends, and that really helped me develop for sure.
Obviously, touching on so many different sports as you were growing up. What would you say looking back now, you obviously look at like some coaches that maybe made a big difference. And I know you went on to play more football, I guess, down the line. But in terms of those other sports, what was the I guess the coaching setup like, and was there any like major role models there for you?
Yeah, I've had a few role models really, and it's one I advocate now to sort of my staff and other individuals within the network, that for me, that element of having a mentor, a role model, I had to have respect for them and appreciate where they come from, where they've gone to. But I'd say if there was a football mentor, used to go to America a lot, and I think it's still very popular now. You're at university. What can you undertake during the summer to make the most of that time? So I read a national newspaper and was looking at opportunities to go and coach abroad, because I completed my level 3. The University of Portsmouth, where I was at the time, they were very supportive and assisted me with that qualification and the funding for it, because they're not cheap.
I guess level 3, you must have been pretty young to be on level 3 as well, but like, I suppose, was it 18, 19?
It was, yeah. We completed the level 2, and then for me it was that next step of, we were volunteering in the community, we were undertaking courses, and the head of sport at the time at Portsmouth, Filippo Antinazzi, got a name drop in because I'm seeing him next week, and he's now head of sport at RGU in Scotland, and he was our football coach at the university, but also he was the head of sport, and I just developed a really strong relationship with him, and I think he, I guess, saw something in me, because we volunteered time back. We were sort of the first team football and supporting all the community engagement stuff, that he part funded my level 3. So I've got a nod to him to say thank you very much, because people invested in me, and now that's my sort of outlook now within my position. But yeah, coaching wise, I'd sent my CV off just to various companies, and I got a call from a guy called Tom Rowney, and he's from Newcastle, but now lives in Portland in Oregon. And I just took this voice, and he said, "Why, man, my accent's not that great, so I'll do it in my accent." He received my CV. He was very much interested in recruiting some coaches to come across for the summer. He ran the goal line soccer clinics and also FC Willamette and Academy. So it's a mixture of directing the camps, but also working in his academy with the boys and girls aid groups from 10 to 18, where it's very different structure there as far as the amateur sport and semi-professional sport. But over there, the investment is still there, very much middle class. And we were just highly respected as English coaches, and having the ability to fall back on my coaching qualifications. And I went across there for 15 years, and I just took everything in. Wherever he was, whatever session he was delivering, I was that shadow. I just wanted to understand how he was engaging on a personal level with the players as well as the parents, how he ran the club, that player management. And
so you're going back every summer, or ever since?
Yeah, yeah, going back every summer for 10, 15 years. And then once that ended, I really missed just the environment and the culture and everything out there, especially on the West Coast. I was
going to ask you a question. In terms of coaching, that coaching badge and that kind of English coach, British coaching badges, etc. What's the structure like? Because as far as I know, in the US soccer coaching level 2, 3, 4, how's it kind of stack up now? Because I know as you get to level 3s, it's more like or higher level, it's more like a degree course rather than a certified coaching badge.
It is, yeah, very much through the sort of First for Sport grading now, where you've got your level 1, level 2, level 3 was equivalent to the UEFA B, and then here you can move on to your A license if you want to work in professional clubs and academies. Over there, they grade it by letters, so A, B, C, D, E, F. So very similar structure as far as the qualifications and grading, but just very, I guess, a different approach from the US Soccer Association compared to the FA here. But they were, English coaches were highly regarded because they haven't had that generational throughput of players playing in the MLS and, within the colleges to then go back into the game as coaches and officials. And I very much found it at the time that they were very welcoming. They wanted to gain your knowledge, and everyone asked, was David Beckham your best friend? So we go around with off someone's number in your phone and pretend it was David Beckham. But the officiating, when you go to tournament, very much tournament based with the junior sort of programs out there, the officials' mentality was very strict, very controlling. You imagine, like you are with American football and baseball, the official is in control. There was no real let the play go. So for me, I think over the next 10 years, once you've seen that generation go through from a young age, and then they start to invest back into their structures and systems, then there will be less of a reliance probably on US and European coaches sort of flooding into the US market as far as soccer.
Yeah, so travelling through, I guess, over that period, that 10, 15-year period, when you're back in the UK, careers progressing, so you're looking at, was it always a position of, obviously doing the coaching out there, but were you always looking for a position at the university or at a university in kind of the higher education side?
Yeah, I didn't really know where I wanted to go as far as a career or a role and what position. And that's sport and events was always my passion. And that's what really directed me. I took advice, take advice from those around you and those that are critical, because I think it's the best way. You've got to be open and honest with yourself. So knowing that university, my experience at University of Portsmouth was a really positive one. I'd interviewed the head of sport at Bournemouth University, where my parents lived, and I knew I was going back to initially. And then an opportunity came up for a role at the University of Bournemouth. And for me, I always saw it as a secure employer, a great environment that you can have experience in a multidisciplinary approach with various sports, various governing bodies. Essentially, university is a knowledge exchange environment. So I could continue learning, continue supporting, but at the same time, still being in that student sport environment and that motivation of students coming through. So that they were the key considerations.
Still get a little bit of competition in there, the taste of competition every week. Yeah.
Absolutely, they were the key considerations. And actually, after my interview, I was in America when the head of sport at Bournemouth called me up to offer me the job. And it was an answer phone message. So I called him back, but I completely forgot the time zone difference. So I got hold of him at about 2:00 in the morning when he was fast asleep. So it wasn't the greatest first impression, but something which I now look back on, when accepting the role. And I think, it gave me the experience in sports development, that middle management and leadership, and then to go on to do my master's whilst I was there, everything around that business commercial side, which ultimately, hopefully, has led me to where I am now and what I do going forwards.
Obviously, heading things up there at Brighton at the moment. What's the challenges you're seeing at the moment? Because we always talk to providers in the sector as well about kind of recruitment and keeping people in the industry and kind of who's coming through and those challenges. Are you seeing that on the other side, on the education side, in terms of recruitment onto the courses, or what's the main kind of themes at the moment that you're challenging?
Yeah, recruitment and retention are very key areas for universities in general and the sector. Obviously, COVID has had its impact, and that lag of students potentially taking gap years and then coming back into the system. Elements around visa eligibility, international students, the cost of living at the moment is a key concern. And the majority, if not all, universities are trying to support those students where possible, whilst allowing them to get that education and experience. And I think that wider student experience outside their academic degree is absolutely crucial for the students' well-being.
With the courses that you're offering, and this is maybe a question across the board, we had a chat with Andy Heald from Simspo, who's heading up this pathway, this coaching pathway or sport and physical activity career guide, if you like, career pathway. Are you making any changes in terms of the course content to, I guess, make people more employable, or what are you seeing from that point of view?
Yeah, as far as course content, I can't comment too much because I'm not from the academic school, but we collaborate very closely. We try to engage in as many of the modules as possible from a Sport Brighton perspective around employability skills. So wherever possible, it's ensuring we've got placements within the service. We've got internships where students can continue their education at postgrad level whilst in a working environment, gaining that valuable experience. But all universities will have careers and employability units, and it's about developing their personal skills. And for me, it's making them career ready. I think there's one difference between the US and the UK here is US universities very much wrap everything around those student athletes. They provide everything for them, from housing to fees, depending on what division they're in as far as the NCAA. And there was a really interesting interview with the next director of a Div 1 institution or college saying, we don't make them career ready because everything is provided for them to that moment they graduate. And then if they're not going into professional sport, they haven't supported them enough to be ready for that next step on their career journey and that transition. Whereas I think UK universities, they do have all of the support services in place, work experience placements, and a lot of the courses have that practical element, just not theoretical. And there's a real balance there, because you may have a degree, but you need the experience, you need the personal skills, you need the personality to present yourself to a future employer. And I think that's a key difference between the US and the UK that I've experienced myself.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, especially in those practical roles, if you've got the hours of coaching under your belt, or you've been out in the community or in whatever environment, academy environment, etc., then you're definitely going to be more, not just ready to be successful at interview, you can actually do the job then when you get through to it. You've got that great experience. So just talking like Brighton specifically, and kind of the model of if we was a student and we were coming to attend the university, you mentioned there about those wraparound services that are there, but obviously not as kind of maybe holding the hands as much. Are you seeing a lot more recruits coming in from a talent perspective? So you're finding that they want to be at the facility, and obviously you're making you've got big projects on that you were talking about earlier on in terms of improving the facilities there as well.
Yeah, we try to be as proactive as possible. Many universities will have full-time recruitment staff, if not full-time directors of sport in specific programs or sports courses. And there is that element that the more we can be proactive in engaging with local clubs, regional talent, many institutions like Brighton, we're a TAS accredited institution, we have that dual career pathway accreditation. So those aspiring student athletes or elite athletes have the ability to balance their training and their professional program alongside the academic tuition and getting that education, as when they do transition from professional sport, because everyone ages, everyone's bodies give up at some point, that they have that degree or postgraduate degree or master's to be able to fall back on into a career. So we try to be proactive as far as sports scholarships, engaging with local clubs to try and retain that talent. And many universities, have that support mechanism, lifestyle support, TAS accreditation. So yes, it's very much a key element to work with the international recruitment teams, both abroad and within England.
All right, great. So you're recruiting talented athletes from abroad as well to come across?
Yes, yeah. From my time at Bournemouth University and now at Brighton, we work with student athlete recruitment agents. So there are focused pots, especially from the NCAA market. Many of the students in America are restricted to 4 years within the NCAA, so they can't continue under a sports scholarship and represent their college. So they look to come to the UK or even Europe to continue that aspirational sporting performance pathway. They can gain a sports scholarship, they can gain a postgraduate master's or an MBA. So I've seen many US athletes, and they're talented, they're committed, their time management is fantastic, and that has an impact on the UK-based students because they're in that environment. You look at sports like basketball, you recruit 2 basketballers from America, it transforms your squad.
It's just raising the level for everyone else. Yeah.
It raises the bar now. And you look at beach volleyball, Bournemouth University, we were big for that. So there are very targeted recruitment agencies out there that work with many universities that try and recruit from the US specifically, but all over the world.
That's awesome. And I guess for me it's interesting, and probably a good segue as well in terms of recruitment and competition, etc., and that performance side, looking at the English university sport. And it'd be good to, I guess, get a bit of an overview and then maybe hear about how you got involved initially. But yeah, can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it all started from my experience in being a student and having GB trials through the English universities, and then moving on to be an assistant coach with the women's team within England universities at previous home nations. And I just got that buzz off it, seeing fellow students representing your country wearing that shirt. An England shirt is just a shirt, but once someone puts it on, it transforms them for the rest of their life. It's such a key morale booster to say, I've represented my country. And the amount of students that have gone on now, we have patrons within England universities. So Tyra Dengby representing England unis, playing at Surrey Scorchers. Tamsin Greenway, she came through as a student at Bath to represent English universities, went on to represent England and is now the head coach at Scottish Thistles. So we've been able to have some patronage to support the programme and grow it. So from my experience, I just saw an opportunity there that at the time, and still is the case now, British universities and college sport, who oversee all student sport, there isn't a current requirement for them, or they don't dedicate resource or funding to support nations. So Welsh student sport deliver their own. Scottish student sport is structured slightly differently, as is Northern Ireland. So I just got involved in the committee, and then unfortunately it was all voluntary, So we resurrected the English Universities Association in 2018. I just saw an opportunity to make an impact within that sort of ecosystem and give students the opportunity that I had. But also we look at it from a staff development perspective, because the amount of coaches, the amount of students that can engage as physios, medics, analysts, the admin, team managers. So we've got 6 programs now and probably 50 or 60 support staff and head coaches in place, and it's all voluntary. So it's incredible to see that transition as they go through and come in, and then you see them go on. One of our national sport managers, Ellis Clark, she's gone on to be the general manager at Blackburn Rovers in the women's football club section. So some of these stories, and that's why the tracking for me, data is really essential for everything, but it gives us an opportunity to provide every university who affiliates to us to have their students trial out for their country, and then those squads are selected, and then they go on to represent their country in 3 or 4 really high profile fixtures. So netball, we played against the Welsh Feathers as part of their World Cup warm up very recently. Men's football, go and play Man United at Carrington with their academies, and so that's the level of sort of quality of competition. But it's around advocacy. We need to advocate with the membership and with Bucks around the value of that domestic representative sport. And that's where Home Nations comes in. It hasn't happened since 2016. So we've just had probably a year and a half of advocacy work by myself and the other national chairs with the membership to say, we really want this back. There is a position for it within university student sport. One, to allow students to experience representing their country. There is a personal development value to those involved, but also just showcasing HE sport globally, the best of the best, and then starting to work with governing bodies. And we want to engage with governing bodies who may see the home nations as part of their performance pathway, because that's an important element to ensure that those students in the programme are being selected and identified for general England representation. So that's an important vision we've got for the programmes.
Just a question on eligibility or for representation, right? So what's the criteria? If I'm English, I went to university in Wales and Cardiff. So who would I compete for if I was lucky enough to trial out?
Yeah, so reputation wise, if you're a student at Cardiff, then you would represent Wales. It very much goes on based on that student card and where you are enrolled. So it's enrolment. So for instance, we've had basketball come back as the men's and women's programs this year. And obviously there are many Americans that study at English universities. So you could get a squad of Americans out.
You get a dream team coming through.
Could get an all-star team, absolutely. But we have that arrangement and agreement with Basketball England, the governing body, to say, well, we cap those international students because we want to develop that home talent. We want to allow them to experience it, which is beneficial to them as a governing body, and the England basketball team. So we try where possible to ensure that criteria and eligibility remains relevant to the HE sector, but also the governing bodies and professional sport.
And the structure, I guess, I know we touched on the number of kind of member organisations. In terms of competitions and representations, is that across all sports, or is it just, obviously I know you're probably working towards that if it's not there already, but how does that look across the kind of the spread of all university sport?
Yeah, sure, very good question. So at the moment we have programmes in netball, men's and women's football, men's and women's basketball, men's and women's hockey, and men's and women's rugby sevens. Now, we've been very clear through the recent surveys to the membership with regards to the hopeful return of home nations next summer, that the nations have the ability to deliver programmes and a competitive competition within those sports. So to get it off the ground, let's showcase it, let's ensure that people see the value in that domestic representative level. But moving forwards, every 2 years, every 4 years, let's engage through BUCS and the governing bodies to say, well, what sports should we be including within that representative sport environment and at that home nations? Because players in football, some being critical, would say, well, why would we go to home nations? They have a contract with a professional academy. Is home nations part of that performance pathway? And that's absolutely right. And that's similar for hockey if they're in the national development programs. But some sports, say lacrosse or other non-traditional sports, actually home nations would be the pinnacle and part of their...
It'd be huge for them,
Yeah, it would be huge, and they could really talent ID through that. So we need to have discussions moving forward with governing bodies and what position and what governing bodies could provide some resource or support, and we can have that collaborative approach.
It's probably my naivety, but in terms of the home nations, what does the format of the event, what are you hoping the format of the event to look like? Would it be a series of different events in all the sports, or would you try and bring them together in almost like a games that you see with, obviously, the Olympics, etc., but things like European Championships now, where they're trying to cut, it's almost like keeping control of the budgets, etc., so putting one larger event rather than trying to do 6 or 7 across the country and have that many staff to manage it, etc.
Yeah, economies of scale always play into these things, especially with the cost of everything soaring. So we've looked and engaged with members, whether it's a single sport approach or historically it was a multi-sport 3 or 4 day event. And that's what we've posed to the members, having that 3 or 4 day multi-sport event in a single location, ideally at a university, and we've had approaches already, which is fantastic. So we can really, everything is around that higher education support, from the volunteers to the media crews, to the medical staff, to the facilities. And it just allows those students to schedule their time with relevant clubs they may be associated to at the same time as representing their university over that period. So we're now in the development phase. We're starting to look at the final costings to then have those detailed discussions with BUCS to say the membership have voted, 74% from the recent survey said that they want the home nations to return. So we now need to engage with BUCS and ensure that they understand the value. BUCS is a membership-led organisation and always has been. So we need to work with them to find a delivery model that works for next year, and then further down the line, phased resource investment from BUCS. And the nations are very much happy to take on that delivery because we see value for our members as well as the students from a sector.
Just to follow up on that, I know you said it stopped in 2016. What was the reason that they stopped back then? Was it just appetite, or members voted against it, or what was the reason for them to stop running it at that time?
So I think, from my understanding, because English universities and the committee folded itself, obviously we are a key nation out of those 4. So there just wasn't the appetite between Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland to be able to resource it and deliver it, which is why now I think in a way English universities and myself in chair, I see that that's a specific responsibility for myself, but also engaging with those other nations to ensure we make it happen. What we've proposed to members is that it becomes part of the BUCS strategy, it becomes part of the BUCS International Development Programme, because then it's sustainable. So regardless of whether the positions within English university committees change, that BUCS alignment ensures that project, the programmes associated, and any funding or relationships with governing bodies would continue biannually. So it's every 2 years.
That was going to be my next question, really, in terms of that sustainability or funding, or how everyone's volunteering at the moment. Is there a case for funding? Where would you get that from, or is it kind of outside sponsorship? Are you looking for sponsors at the moment? What's the setup for that?
Yeah, we're very much reliant on one, the membership affiliations. So institutions will affiliate at the start of the cycle, and that becomes our operating budget. Across the programs, as a committee, through our sort of national sport managers and head coaches, we agree a central percentage support element. So usually it's around 70% of a program that a head coach has requested. The 30% goes on to a player contribution. And I still think it's wrong in this day and age that we're asking, especially students, to pay to represent their country. That's just it's just not right. But there is no other way at the moment without, as you say, gaining external sponsorship and partnership. So over the last couple of years, we've tried to raise our profile externally, and by being self on the drive phase, hopefully it will do that. We've been able to engage with some key partners where we see a value in not just the financial element, but a resource element in professionalizing the environment around the student and their experience in the program. So we have Catabalt, so we have their wearables, iPro Hydrate from a resource element for drinks and nutrition. We have the student sport company, so they are able to provide articles and distribute that globally on our behalf. We have Cookery, the clothing sponsor. So there are key partners that we've aligned up, similar to like VO, streaming camera, so we can spread.
It's a good synergy platform, isn't it, for synergy across, like with obviously, especially with the academic side as well. If anyone's doing research or trying to launch a new product or initiative or whatever, it's quite a nice ecosystem to pull from, right?
It is, yeah. We've tried to be strategic with those initial partners we've brought on board, which is great, and that's working very positively. And I say they are partners. It's not just a transactional relationship as far as sponsorship. We wanted that partnership approach. And now we're at the stage with Home Nations where we will be seeking partners. And it's definitely an opportunity that if there are suppliers or products out there that want to engage with the higher education market and that high performance sector, then we will be seeking, once we get round to delivering the Home Nations, to have some key sponsors or partners on board. So more than happy they reach out to me.
No, and I think it's a great opportunity for them, for sure. So I guess switching gears a little bit, I always like to talk about yourself and so much experience, especially travelling and coaching different areas and leading teams, building teams and managing the operation. Have you kind of come up with any, I guess, concepts or mantras and stuff that you live by day to day in terms of how you run in the organisation?
Yeah, good question. I think everything for me is around people and connections. Whatever sector you work in, whatever your role is, it's about people. They're the most important thing, and creating connections. Be that between a product and an end user, be it between us as a sports department and a student. And you look at the way funding's changed now, it's all about behavioural change. How can we engage more people in physical activity, health and well-being to save the NHS money? You look at that prescribing social activity for the elderly. For me, I think I said at the start, my parents nurtured me, sport made me, and university I found me. I guess that's my sort of journey there. And now I'm still on a journey, but for me it's around aspiring to inspire others. I had some key mentors with, be it coaching, be it my university experience, and then as a mentor professionally, the ex-general manager of the student union, Alan James, when I was thinking about my next steps career-wise before coming to University of Brighton, that mentorship and his time and commitment to myself to help me and what I needed to do and where I needed to position myself makes me look back and go, well, now I aspire to inspire others. And that's probably a key mantra for me. Although my missus would always say she'd like a bit of me from work, not when I get back from work. Two very different environments there. But emotional intelligence, simple things. I really enjoy the psychology of people, environments and engagements and interactions. And, no one's perfect. Don't let perfect get in the way of good, because sometimes good is enough. Hard work will always give a positive return. whether that's just grafting with others, volunteering, engaging, listening, learning, adding people. The art of LinkedIn in itself, I think, that's an asset in itself, which I'm sure you're well aware of.
I love that. I think some of those focuses on the people as well is always, especially when you're leading that volunteer-led organisation, there's got to be something behind it, right, to keep everyone together.
Yeah, I've seen the value of volunteers most definitely coming into this role of chair, and you've got to be able to lead that directional element as far as a strategy and a vision, and be strong about that. But you've got to take those people on a journey with you, and personal relationships is really important, and enjoying it. If you're not enjoying your job, you're in the wrong job. Quite frankly, that's sort of my position. That yes, you have to be professional, but actually, if you enjoy your job, people will come along that journey with you, and they will get the best out of it. And as long as you are aware of their reasons and their objectives, being part of that voluntary association, then it's mutually beneficial.
In terms of like yourself, obviously working in that competitive environment or leading the charge for the competitions, etc., at the elite level, what do you do personally to, I guess, stay on top of your game? Are you still competing? Are you still playing football? Are you running? What's your physical outlet at the moment to kind of de-stress and stay on top of your game, etc.?
Yeah, any type of physical activity is absolutely a de-stressor, whether it's walking the dog or taking the kids out, going to the cricket nets or football coaching, whatever. But for me, I say I gave up playing just mid-Sussex football after playing semi-professionally a long time ago. When you have a family, commitments change, right? But played mid-Sussex football till last year. Although I said I'd given up, we've got pre-season for another club starting this evening. So I can't take myself away from that environment and being involved in competitive sport. But I think as you realise and you mature and my ankles start to give up, that it's having those additional outlets, whether it's going for a cycle ride for an hour or taking up more of a golf as a pastime or getting into swimming. Everything for me it was all sports, engaging as much as possible because there's transferable skills everywhere.
Yeah, it's got to be tough, right? Especially being in that environment, like that camaraderie in that team environment, kind of locker room, etc. That's, you've got to miss that. We got, like, if you got on the bikes, it's slightly different, right? To getting together with the guys on the weekend or midweek.
It is. It's a mental release as well as a physical release, and it's finding, I think, that replacement for that outlet, de-stressing, and even that period on a Saturday, and understanding what you can replace like for like. I remember when I was at Bournemouth that we had just a couple of the pros at the time who were aware that their contracts were ending, and they just reached out to me and said, well, I need to now find a career. So looking at replacing their professional career with actually a career and a job, that all of a sudden, I had 2 or 3 over the space of 6 months. I just sat down and having conversations with him around where are they now, whether they want to be, what's possible in the short term, long term, and start engaging with, get their coaching badges, start to engage with X, Y, and Z. And I think from that, I understood, and you can see it now, some recent articles around that transition of how professional clubs and academies treat players. And I've coached in that environment before. And it is very true. They're a product. It's a numbers game and it's a business at the end of the day. But there has to be that player care during that transition, be it from the Premier League, the PFA, or the clubs themselves. And I think that there does need to be some work on that, because I've seen it myself through ex-pros reaching out to me.
So we always ask everyone this question: is this the reflection on, I guess, your career so far, etc. So if you were going to go back and speak to your younger self at some point, whether it be like that 18-year-old who's just got his coaching badge or 19-year-old who's got his coaching badges, what piece of advice would you go back and tell yourself?
I think for me, it would be just believe in yourself in feeling different. I think with media nowadays and everything around conformity in social media, believe in feeling different to others. Surround yourself with those who you respect and admire, because you will learn from them, and judge yourself by those who believe in you, because those people around you see something in you, and that's a confidence booster. So for me, those would be the key things. Believe in feeling different. Surround yourself with those who you respect and admire, but judge yourself by those who believe in you. And I think that all comes through from, captaincy in sport, those personal skills and attributes that you learn, but you don't necessarily value at the time. But the experience gained from that just gives you a platform to develop and move on and forwards with your later career.
No, I love that. Yeah, it's so difficult, like you said, with social media to try and not just follow the herd and try and fit in. So no, I love that one. Barry, appreciate your time and being so transparent with us. Good luck with all the planning for next year. Hopefully we can maybe come back, get you back on again then in the run up to, or maybe be probably flat out then in the run up to next year if that's when the event's happening. But congratulations with it all and thanks for coming on today.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on. I've learned a lot from listening to your previous podcasts, and I think it's a great networking element as well as understanding insight, and I'm learning from it. So I'm more than happy to give.
Yeah, definitely. If there's any any students listening, we feel like it's a good launch pad to kind of understand the industry. You've got a lot of different sectors in there, so yeah, pick the one that you want to go into and have a listen, see if it's what you think it's going to be before you start working in it. So no, awesome. Thanks so much, Barry.
Thank you.